very special occasion tonight. My name is Paul Stroud. I'm the executive director here. So before we get started, I just wanted everybody here to know that this is what our mission is, to do exactly what you've come to here tonight and to share with everyone else who has a connection to part of surfing and its history that is dear and precious to you. And this means everything to us. We have gentlemen who have worked very hard to put this program together to try to deliver the message of what took place 60 years ago from its start. And in that other room is an exhibit of some of the more special surfboards that Hap was directly responsible for putting into the hands of surfers, not only in California but elsewhere, and having them start in this whole pilgrimage about experiencing nature and learning about the sea and learning how to be a better person too in the process. I really believe that. That's our mission here. And with that in mind, I'd like to take the opportunity here to introduce you to a few of our steersmen who kind of guide the ship, as it were. They're board members here, and I'd like to ask them, Bob Martin, would you just acknowledge that you're here? Bob Martin, she's our board president. Dick Metz, where are you, Dick? Right behind Bob. Dick basically is single-handedly responsible for putting all of this together. He spent most of his life working in surfing. If you don't know, you could Google him and he'll pop up on many pages. He was responsible for launching Hobie's retail sales career. He actually started over in Hawaii, and I remember him very well looking for a place and cleaning out the shop on Kapi'olani Boulevard, which became a milestone, a location for Hobie in Hawaii. Thank you, Dick. Keith Ackerman is also here. Where are you, Keith? There's Keith. Keith is our board president. Keith just on the straight and narrow, and thank you very much for all your service, Keith. I just wanted to share a little bit of my personal history with Hap Jacobs. Real quick short story before I turn it over to Jim Graham, who's going to present the basis of the entire show tonight, which is to celebrate Hap's 60 years of bringing pleasure, joy to a great part of the surfing world. In 1961, when I graduated from high school, my parents asked me what I would like before I started school, college that is, as a graduation gift. And I said, I'd love to go to California. I'd never been to California. I read about it. I saw Bud Brown's photo movies, and then John Severson when he started his Surfer magazine, and it was a gold mine. So I came up with at the invitation of Bill Rowe, who was a friend of mine who is from Hermosa Beach, wrote for Hap as well, and then I came over and I ended up staying with Chubby Mitchell, who was a good close friend of mine for many years in Hawaii. And so I was introduced. Another good friend of mine, Kenny Tilton, was actually shaking for Hap at that time. Remember him? Yeah, he certainly remembers you. He speaks very fondly of you too, whenever I see him. And so Hermosa Beach, I couldn't believe for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think to this day there's never been more foam turned into fashioned into surfboards than any other place in the world. And mind you, I'm talking about 1 square mile of real estate that represents Hermosa Beach. It really is a true legacy to surfing worldwide. I don't think any other location geographically could match up with what has been developed and turned into surfboards and heightened the lives of so many people. So anyway, I had the good fortune of meeting through Chubby and Bill Hap, and it was really, first of all, you're going to hear from a lot of people who are going to speak tonight, but I haven't met a more genuine gentleman in my life than that man on the end of this row here. And to me, that's always been more important than any other accolade, how they treat and respect others. And he has my vote for #1. right alongside with Duke Hanamaku, as far as I'm concerned. And so I had a chance to meet Hap and see the organization that he had put together and all of the people that worked there. He had some of the greatest shapers there on the West Coast making these boards. And they took such pride in their craft and what they did. And the other thing that really tilted my mind was how they were able to ride these boards, because they were so flat, there was no rocker in them, and either on the nose or in the tail. And you really had to know how to use weight displacement to get them to turn, especially in a beach break. And I don't mean to discredit Hermosa. I went down there on 22nd Street, met Lance Carson and quite a few of the other guys that I'd heard a lot about, and their surfing spoke miles. And then I walked in at 22nd Street and I said, "Why do you guys surf here? It must be a really bad day." But out of small waves and rough conditions, that's how diamonds are formed. So it's really a special tribute to have you here, Hap, tonight, and to have a celebration which you so richly deserve. Thank you for all the memories and everything you've done. This is Jim Graham.
Very bad.
Good evening. This is going to be one bitch an evening, folks. This is what it's all about. I'm doing a little biographical background or a biographical sketch of our good friend Hap. It's been my pleasure to know Hap for over 55 years. And Hap, or Dudley Hap Jacobs, Jr. Born in West Los Angeles, July 12, 1930. Do the math. It's your assignment for the next 20 minutes for those of us that can't remember our parochial school education. Hap moved to Hermosa Beach with his family when he was in the 4th grade. He attended South Bay schools, including North School as a youngster. He went on to Pier Avenue, which is now the community center in Hermosa Beach, and has a museum, by the way, which is kind of interesting to look at. Continued on to Redondo High School, where he graduated in 1948. He was a student body president at his high school.
Wow.
He was also a very, very outstanding basketball player, varsity player for 2 years. He then continued on to El Camino College for a couple of years, having graduated, as I mentioned, in 1948. For those of you too young to remember, it used to be at 18 you had to sign up for the draft. For those of you that may be a little young, though in this crowd there's not too many of you. A lot of wrinkles. By the way, you know how to get rid of the wrinkles, is you just eat a lot and you get heavy and it doesn't show wrinkles. So there's, and none of us want to get out of here being a beautiful corpse, just to have a good time. So he signed up for the draft. But before that, he had moved, as I mentioned, into the South Bay from West Los Angeles, leaving all his little buddies in the 4th grade, and was very, very disappointed by that. He was an only child, and he wasn't very happy until he discovered a surf mat. And his first job as a young fella was working in Hermosa Beach at a rental shop where you could rent surf mats. And those of us that grew up around the water, that have a love affair with the ocean, remember probably most of us started on those Converse surf mats that we blew up as hard as we could get them, and then tried standing up on it and did spinners all the way to the beach if we could stay on it. Hap decided that this isn't a bad deal. He developed a liking for the ocean, which later translated into a love affair with the sea, which has been an integral part of his life from that point forward. His first job, as I mentioned, was renting surf mats. And when he got his Social Security card, in those days, before my time, they put your job title or where you worked on your Social Security card. And his Social Security card, the first one he had the title California Surf Rider, because he worked at a shop called the California Surf Rider. He matriculated to the surfboard, an old coupe box, discovered in Hermosa Beach. The Hap Jacobs-boards of the world were the gang in Hermosa, among others. Dale Belzy, who was 2 years ahead of Hap in school, didn't spend a lot of time in school, was pretty truant most of the time, yet he, for some reason, kind of took a liking to this young kid and his pals, John McFarland being one that hung around the beach acting like gremlins will, bugging them. And quite frankly, it comes back to roost because those of you that are familiar with the South Bay knew that the 17th Street Seals, which were led by the likes of Mike Bright and Chip Post and some of those characters, came to bug Hap when he and his gang, Bob Bergstrom, Stewie Linder, John McFarland, Hal Armandroyd, Beecher Anderson, when those guys were 5 years older than them, they bugged the daylights out of them. Water fights, run-bys, to distract them from the pretty girls that these older guys were enjoying company with. As I mentioned, Hap is a junior. His father was Dudley Jacobs Sr. His mother, Mazette. Did I pronounce that right, Hap? Mother's name, Mazette? Yes. She was not happy, or she was very happy about moving to the beach from West Los Angeles because, surprise, surprise, she loved to fish. She probably got Hap started to the fishing love that he carried on through the rest of his life. Hap's father was a contractor, a plumber. He was a foreman on a rather major job at the time, which was building up a great deal of what is now UCLA in West Los Angeles. The mom was a stay-at-home mom, took good care of the family and the household, and as I mentioned, every other day or so, spent a few hours on the pier in Hermosa and in the surf line fishing. After Hap had left high school, he went to El Camino College for a couple of years, played basketball, had an interview with John Wooden, who was the basketball coach, of course, at UCLA at the time. He was that good a ball player. The only problem with that is that he needed to make up a couple of grades from his high school and El Camino days that was going to cost a little bit of dough, and his dad says, why would you want to do that? It's time to go to work. Well, instead of doing that, Hap saw and heard from a friend of his mother, who worked at the draft board up in West Los Angeles, says, you guys are coming up, and as the Korean conflict was there in 1950, or beginning in 1950. So Hap and a buddy of his signed up for the Coast Guard and moved off to Hawaii. One of the great moves, as he says now, of his life. So he left, got in the Coast Guard, moved to Hawaii. He had been surfing, loved surfing. He started surfing when he was a junior in high school in this old coupe box. He was a buoy tender in the Coast Guard, which allowed him the opportunity, with a smaller crew, to be pretty casual in their approach. What they did basically was move buoys around the various sundry parts of the island. So he got to know the islands intimately. He knew every nook and cranny on all the islands. Also got to do a great deal of fishing. Never had to wear the uniform other than steel-toed boots, which were required on the boat. Most of the time it was equivalent to our board shorts today. And he had a great experience there. Additionally, he got 2 days off a week, didn't have to sleep in a barracks, and had the good life. He also, at that time, shared the deck of this particular Coast Guard boat with a lifelong pal of his, George Downey. George, of course, was a kind of an iconic figure, even at that point in his life. Top paddler, terrific surfer, introduced Hap to the locals, which was not a bad idea. In Hawaii in those days, Hollies were Hollies. And George paved the way for Hap to have a very enjoyable experience the years he was in Hawaii. One of the other things that happened to Hap is he says the two greatest things in his life were being a buoy tender and meeting his future wife, Pat, who was here this evening. He didn't tell me what order they were, which was first and which was second. Those were the two highlights of his life even today. He was standing at Waikiki looking at Queen Surf one day. Two people were in the water, Joey Cabell, and Alan Gomes. Hap didn't have a board, but he was standing next to the board rental rack in Waikiki. This is about 1950, 51 maybe. And the tender at the board rack said, you surf? He says, hey, I've surfed a board. He says, would you like to try it? So he wanted out the three of them at Queens, the only three people on the beach, in the water, Joey Cabell, Alan Gomes, and Hap Jacobs, 1951. Let's see here. He met Pat, as I mentioned. She was working at a restaurant. She and her girlfriend had left California after they got out of high school at 19, or she was out of high school probably a year or so before she headed off to Hawaii at 19 for an adventure. And if we think about it now, our kids do this all the time, our grandkids, or whatever the case might be. Maybe even some of us did it when we were young, but I think in the 40s and 50s it wasn't quite that way. It was a little different time. But Pat and her girlfriend moved to Hawaii, and it was there that serendipitously she met Hap, and perhaps more importantly, Hap met her. After a 2-year stint in Hawaii, he moved back to California. This would have been 1953. He and Pat got married in September of 1954. They have 2 sons. They have 4 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. Happily, do the math on that one, they got married. They've been married 60 years. And I think we can put our hands together for that one. So Hap needed to go to work. Well, the first thing he did when he got back is he got back into school because he wanted to get into the construction business. He was an apprentice carpenter. And he worked with his father, who was a foreman in the development of a lot of what was going on up at UCLA. Well, after a year of the drudgery of driving from the South Bay into West Los Angeles, Hap said, I'm done. It was a terrific job, lots of work, good salary, it was a nice retirement package, and when asked by his pals what he was going to do, he said, I'm going to the beach to make driftwood furniture and make surfboards. 1955. You're giving this up for that. Yep, well, he did it. He had been making some furniture along the way, and then he reconnected with Dale Velzy. And by the way, Dale Velzy, this exhibit over here is the replication of Dale's shop that he had in San Clemente. So when we're done here this evening, you might want to kind of maneuver around here. This absolutely wonderful stuff, and take a look at the readings and things. So he and Dale decided that maybe we could go into business together. Well, they opened up a little shop. Dale had been making a few boards at the Manhattan Pier. They then opened up a shop up in Venice on Speedway. Of course, it was before Marina Del Rey was in position. You could catch a wave every once in a while at Ballona Creek. And the surfing world kind of took off in that part of the world. And this would have been 1955. Well, they hung together for a couple of years, and Dale decided he wanted to move to San Clemente, and Hap and Pat, who had just started their family, said, well, maybe we'll move to San Clemente and we'll continue the business down there. Well, one thing after another kind of got in the way of that, so Dale went his way. Hap opened up his store in Hermosa Beach. The first year in business in Hermosa was at 8th and Cypress, where he still does some shaping today on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, and sometimes on Sunday. While they were building 422 Pacific Coast Highway in Hermosa Beach, which a lot of photographs that you can see, and some of the stuff perhaps that will be on here a little bit later. And that started surfboard revolution, pretty much. We're talking now 1959. The movie Gidget was about to hit the screens and change our world forever. Kathy Kohner, You're Okay. The movie, we were really pissed off. Crowds in the water, the lifeguards initiated the black ball. Oh my God, that was awful. But hey, it happened. It also put us kind of mainlined, and of course other things came along like the endless summer, etc., which put us in a most favorable light. So Hap was in Hermosa Beach for the next 10, 11 years. A very successful store. Hermosa was also the home of several other surfboard manufacturers at the time. Greg Knoll was there, Rick Stoner, Dave Copeland. Becker came along after the fact. Johnny the Greek Antoniadis made a few boards there. Sonny Vardaman made a few boards there. So Hermosa was kind of the hub of what was going on. And my good fortune at that time is I got involved with a TV show called Surf's Up. And I had the good fortune of being in the shop, working the shop, when that phone call came in from Stan Richards looking for some surfboards to make a movie set or a TV set for this Sunday afternoon show. And it didn't hurt that every Sunday there was Jacobs Surfboards. And Stan Richards, who had met Hap just once, way late in the end of the show, every Sunday was giving it, you got to go down to Hermosa Beach and see my good buddy, Hap Jacobs. So, as you know, in 1967-68, after Nat Young, who by the way is here this evening, Nat, we're awfully glad you can make it. Nat Young showed up at the World Surfing Championships in Lima, Peru on a board considerably shorter than the rest of us, doing things that we didn't imagine were possible. And of course, the next several years, the shortboard came on board until Pep Ike and Dewey Weber put together a longboard revival back in 1980. Then Hap got back into the business, but between that time, he bought himself a fishing boat. He ran the fuel dock at King Harbor near the Portofino Inn in Redondo Beach for about 12 years. He also did a lot of swordfish fishing, his love. Brought on and encouraged by his mom, I'm sure. Late in the 70s, he came on back on board and started making some boards. And if you've taken the time, or if you haven't taken the time yet, please do so to take a look around in the exhibit, the Hap exhibit, a sample of many of the boards that he has made for a variety of top surfers. He was very innovative in the business. His showroom in the late 60s was not equaled by anybody in the business at that time. He had the smarts to put really nice displays up. He also, along with the help of our next speaker here, put together the first surf team, which basically was utilizing the young people in not only the South Bay, but throughout Southern California, and as far north as Santa Barbara, and as far west as Hawaii, getting those top surfers in each of those locations, riding boards, sponsoring them in surf competitions, assisting them in getting to places like Hawaii with the surf photographers at the time, the Bruce Browns and the Bud Browns and the John Seversons and the Graham Roloffs and the Dale Davises and the Greg McGilvery, Jim Freemans of the world were able to feature them in their movies. By the way, we have a young man here who was writing for Hap at the time, Robert Ogden, so I acknowledge the fact that he is right here. Just a quick side note, I met Robert through the Long Beach Surf Club. We had belonged to the same surf club in the early 60s. And then when he got back from his adventure on the Endless Summer, and we got back, and I was relieving, taking another job after working in Jacobs' shop as a shop manager for a year or so. Robert came in, worked the front desk, tremendous schmooze guy, attractive, and mommies who loved him, and they were not bashful about putting that check down for that $105 surfboard.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yeah, but his sons are good looking too. I'm telling you that right now. And grandsons.
who is Hap? Okay, we said a lot of things. He was a pioneer in the surfing industry. He's an artisan. He's a craftsman. He's a businessman. He was a son. He's a husband, a father, a grandfather, a great-grandfather. He's a mentor to many. He's clearly a class act. He's a great friend, and he's a fabulous human being. I would now like to introduce Henry Ford, who is the primary mover and shaker of this particular event. He's got some remarks to make, and Henry, you did good, buddy. Thank you.
I think one of the most important persons in my life was Hap Jacobs, along with my mom and dad. But Hap, as a mentor, as a leader, a friend, and someone who contributed so much to the surfing industry, it's a pleasure to be here with him tonight. Worked for him for many years, worked for his dad, cleaning bricks back in the old days at 35 cents an hour, I think, when Hap didn't have anything else for us to do. But we all got together back then. It's been 60 years, but there were friendships that were formed that are still here today. I'm sitting here with some of my best friends from 50 to 60 years ago, and the main one is Hap. We had a reunion of the Jacobs Surf team, and well over 100 people showed up, and it was like yesterday. It was like 1955, 56, 57, 60 again. And those friendships, as I look over at Freddie Fowler and look at Robert, look around the room at all these friends that were part of that great era and still are part of that great era. And I see so many of them that are still at the beach every day surfing. The reunion, I think, was something that brought a lot of people back together, brought a lot of great memories. So from that reunion, we had the opportunity to work with SHACC here, and I can't thank the guys from the Surf Heritage Cultural Center for all the help that I got from everyone here. And all of you sitting out there, if you have any memorabilia, you have any interest in the history of surfing, please join this group. Join us in making the history of surfing available to the future generations. Barry Hahn, Hal, Steve Wilkinson, Linda, Cindy, all of those people worked tirelessly over the last couple of weeks to make this possible. And again, we can't thank this kind of an organization enough for maintaining and keeping and preserving our history from the past. We want to thank all those people who also contributed their surfboards, their clothing, their photographs to make this a quality presentation and a true history of Jacobs surfboards, Hap Jacobs, and the surfing community. Ed Schuyler made a t-shirt that says it all. 60 years of quality handcrafted surfboards. That's Hap Jacobs. One of the great men of all times and one of the great shapers of all times. And his contributions will be remembered by all of us. I want to thank Daryl Dickey for the book and the time that he spent of chronicling all of the people who were part of that team, the letters that came from each one of us to Hap, showing our appreciation and the warmth that he gave us in those free surfboards. What a great time. There were so many people that contributed to making this popular and making this night possible, and a lot of them are here. The Briggs family. Pete Briggs came to our rescue a number of times when we were looking around trying to find anybody that would loan us the Hap Jacobs surfboards, because no one wants to leave their board at a museum or any place for 6 to 8 weeks while we keep this exhibit up. And by the way, the exhibit will be up through February 15th. So if you don't have time tonight to look around, come up on your own, spend some time up here, become a member, and join us in preserving the history of surfing. Daryl Dickey, John Granis, Steve Wilkins, Mike McIntyre, Patty Brown, Kenny Brown, Kenny Brown's limo service. We got to thank him for all of those great things. There was a special guy here, Barry Hahn, and another guy named Hal, who spent the last 10 or 12 days here with us, putting it together. But it's such a special time tonight. We thank everybody that's here. I want to make mention of some of the luminaries here. I'm looking over at Tom Morey over here. I hope he doesn't go to sleep on that. Nat Young, wherever you are. Robert August from Endless Summer and everything else. Carl Ekstrom, one of the shapers extraordinaire, is here tonight. And it's just great to see John Van Hammersfeld, who we all grew up with, Sharon Marshall. So we thank you all for coming, and we hope that you realize what this opportunity is for you guys to join in and help preserve the history of surfing. Thank you.
For those of you who don't get the opportunity to get a real long and delightful look at what we've got here, we invite you to come back and promise you that you come back tomorrow, there'll be much more parking. Next up, I'd like to introduce Kenny Brown, who is a close associate of Hap's. He and his wife and are dear friends of Hap and Hap. Henry alluded to the fact that he was the chauffeur. He's told Hap one lie in all the years they've known each other. And that was to get Hap to come to this event that we had about a month and a half ago at Redondo Beach. And he said that they were going to go out to dinner somewhere, and they stopped at this restaurant, another restaurant en route, and Hap was confused with what was going on, and then overwhelmed by the fact that there were some 100 plus old surf guys and gals that were there. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Kenny Brown. Oh, there was one other person that didn't get mentioned who was instrumental in the success of the event at Redondo Beach, and that's Chris Bredesen and his family back here. And his partner in crime, his wife and family, of course, with Mike O'Neill. They both stepped up to the plate and were very, very generous in making that event. Kenny Brown.
Yeah, when we brought Hap, I tried to tell him that we were going to a steakhouse, and we had to leave early, and he wasn't really enthralled about that. So as we drove up, we pulled in front of Hap and the kids, and Hap looks at me and says, "What a restaurant we have to bring your own fish to this one?" And then obviously walked in. Anyway, as you look around, you see the influence that Hap had on surfing and building boards and shaping boards and the design. And the design and also the influence he had on all of us. And he did it with style and grace, just like he surfed. And that's basically all I have to say.
I'm going to kind of finish my conversation. Mike McIntyre has presented Hap with some gifts here, which he will open up a little bit later, I guess. But we wanted to make mention of that, and we want to make mention of the photography that Mike had done, and he presented it to Hap, and it's got all the surf team members on the back of it, and it's a great piece of art, and it's a great gesture by Mike McIntyre. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Henry. The gift, by the way, I happen to know what it is, and we'll present it to Hap in a few moments. You've seen the photo that was taken at the reunion here. It's a metal replication of that. And it will be wrapped ceremoniously, I'm sure, once it's unveiled, in a beach towel from the Hermosa Biltmore Hotel, which is being made available through the efforts of Mike and his people. Mike, we thank you very much. And Steve Weibel, by the way, also is part of that. Next on our agenda, I want to acknowledge Mike O'Neill, Boone, over here. Did you want to have a word and say anything? Mike was, along with Chris Bredesen, instrumental in making or helping make the event in Hermosa Beach happen. Mike?
Thanks, Jim. I came on board in around 1960. had the pleasure of working with Henry, Tim Kelly, Gary Stevers, Smitty. We had a great bunch of guys. It was fabulous. A few years later, Lance and Robert came on board, and we pretty much ran the sales shop and made the sales and so forth. When I first got there, we were selling, like, you could get an 8.6 or a 9-foot or a 9.6, about $95. Maybe if you went to 9.6, $100 or something. And it was mostly the local beach guys and so forth. And then the music came along and the movies came along, and pretty soon we're inundated with orders from the valley, from inland, from the East Coast and so forth. And at that point we had to get kind of serious. Before that, when Big South Swell would come, Hap would say, let's go to Malibu. We'd close the shop book, surf for the day, and we'd have a great time. But once we started getting orders, we had to change the way we did business, and we had to try to keep up and so forth. And so these were the times when things took off and got really wild. Some of the parts, the things that I remember most, or the fun things, were the guys from La Jolla would come up and help us shake. And Carl Ekstrom was one of the guys. We'd have Pal Al, a few of the other guys, Wayne Land, and we would make a lot of surfboards. But when it came to Hap Jacobs, it was all about quality. Hap would look at every board that was shaped, and he would look at the shape, he'd look at the rails, and look how the wind, and if he approved it, it would go to the glass shop. Unfortunately, at that point, at those days, that's where things would bottleneck, and the poor kids waiting for their boards, they'd order them in June, wouldn't get them in August, and so forth. And we'd have to deal with it. You know, had to tell them, you know, what was going on. Yeah, we did. And then they come back from the glass shop, and then they weren't. The gloss coat wasn't right, so I have to send them back down. We'd go, well, you know, more excuses and so forth. But anyway, that was kind of the heydays. We tried a few things. We added things, some things and so forth. And one just came to mind a couple of months ago. I called Hap and told him the Beach Boys are coming to Idaho. And he says, well, go see my friend Bruce Johnson and say hi for me. So I went backstage and saw Bruce. And Bruce says, I bought a board from Hap for $95. You tell Hap this. And I drove down to Swami's and I went into the water and the board started vibrating. And all of a sudden I went, oh my God, it was those beaded fins. so he said it. He got out of the water, sanded it down, put a notch in it, which I didn't understand that, and it worked just perfectly and so forth. He said, this guy could figure it out in 20 minutes. It took us 2 weeks to figure out what the heck was going on with these boards and all that. But anyway, it was my pleasure to work for Hap. I worked through the longboard era, and when the shortboards came, I kind of phased off and went on with my life and so forth. These are the greatest memories I'll ever have, and I worked for the greatest guys, and worked for the greatest guy, Hap Jacobs.
Sure that Ed Schuyler gets a bit of recognition for the t-shirts that he provided at that particular event a month or so ago. Also, Don Craig provided some beautiful banners with the Jacob logo on it that were signed by almost all of the team members who were at the event. I understand they have one here at the museum. They didn't have a wall space for it, but I'm sure that they're going to try to find a spot for it before the exhibit continues now through February 15th. The final speaker I want to introduce to you is the guy that, if you've been watching the screen up here, you've been seeing flashes of surf team members and letters to Hap that were compiled by Daryl Dickey and his beautiful bride as a tribute to our good friend Hap. The team members were all asked to write a letter if they wished to and send along some old photographs saying hello to Hap, perhaps an anecdote or two about the days that when we were all fresh-faced and younger then. And he did an incredibly beautiful job with this book. It's a book that is really only available to surf team members, kind of a private press run. But that's Daryl Dickey, and he has made a trip down here from Northern California to be part of this, as he would. I wouldn't doubt that for a moment. And he's got a very special presentation to make to Hap this evening. Daryl?
I've never been here before, and I just want to say what an amazing job everybody involved in this facility has done. I don't know, there's no time for me to thank everybody else. I'll just go on to the thanks that everyone else has already made. But there is one person that I'd like to pay special thanks to, and that's my good friend Henry Ford. I know that he spent endless hours up here working and promoting this event. And he even bothered to take enough time out of his day. For the last 3 months, Henry has called me in the morning to be sure that I wasn't sleeping in. And it's a good thing, because a lot of those days I was. So Henry, I want to thank you. My nightstand has a lot more room on it now that I could get rid of my alarm clock. But unfortunately, I don't have as many notes as these other guys. But what I want to talk to is about something that's been very dear to Hap's heart and has bothered him a little bit for a number of years. And Hap, as you recall, when about 20-ish years ago, back in 19 some or other, I got a new car. And of course, the requisite thing that you had to do as a Jacobs guy was to put on your back window a Jacobs sticker. So, I'd had experience with trying to scrape the stickers off, the old ones, and gluing them back on the new window, and that never quite worked out. So I went down to your shaping room at Shoreline in Hermosa, and unfortunately you weren't there. So I found your stash, I grabbed a couple stickers, left a note, and all was good and looked great on my car, and I kind of forgot about it until about a year ago when you told me that your bookkeeper, who I believe happens to be Hap Jacobs, found that note, and you reminded me that I owed you for those stickers. Well, it made me feel really bad, and I told Hap, I said, look, you gotta, if we're gonna settle this up, you gotta calculate in inflation, interest rates, and all the rest, and so we've been waiting to come to terms with that. So before I came down here, I thought, well, you know what? I could get rid of the inflation part of the equation if I handed Hap the stickers back. Then I only owe you full interest. But my plan would have worked if these were actually mine, but sadly they aren't. Hap, these came from a guy that cares for you more than you probably think. They represent your trademarks for surfboards, and Skip Beal wants you to own these trademarks for surfboards effective immediately. A couple days ago, Hap. This is just the official part of it. I'm going to transfer ownership for Class 28 surfboards as described in my current registered trademarks for both Surfboards by Jacobs and Hap Jacobs surfboards to you. All details will be done under transfer of these rights when your attorney draws up the documents, blah, blah, blah. All the best to you. Come on, Skip. You're the man. Come on.
Put it together for Skip Beal, who's right back here. We are brothers, we are sisters, we do love each other, we have a love affair with the ocean. Come up here, Skip.
Skipper! Wow. Big deal.
I don't anything like this other than tell you that we are honored to be in the presence of one of the true gentlemen of the surfing culture, of our history. We all have that love affair with the ocean. Hap shared it with all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, Hap Jacobs.
Skip and I, we had some problems when we first started, and so Skip got the labels for the t-shirts, and then somehow it got kind of switched around in his name, and it's been kind of but anyway, tonight's the first time we've been asking Skip if we could just get the label back, and this is the first time I've heard that we have it back to use on the boards, so we don't have to change things around. I think we really should give Skip a hand. Who's really done a lot for me there is Daryl Digby. I think it might let him go on those stickers. Daryl's worked pretty hard, and Skip got together with Skip, and I haven't talked with Skip for a long time, but I think everything is going to get solved, and we're going to be back the way it used to be. But I sure appreciate everybody here tonight. I see a lot of people I haven't seen in years. I'm glad to see Robert August here too, and a lot of people. I could go on and on. The people that worked at the shop, and the shapers, and everybody had their own little thing they put on the number so you could tell who did it. But it's really something. They did get me on a big surprise not too long ago down at the fish market, we call it. But I'm pretty low key on all of this, you know. As you could probably tell. Jim does a good job. He was with me for a long time, and he did a lot for us. And the rest of them are standing right here. Michael, Neil, Daryl, and Henry, of course, and Jim Graham. He got us on that surf program, which was amazing. It was Stan Richards. We got it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I guess, and he came out with the surfboards, and everybody else, like right down the street, he just couldn't believe it. And Stan Richards was always saying, to my good friend Hap Jacobs, I've never met him. However, I did meet him one day at the breakwater. He showed up, a nice guy, and everybody's really done a lot for me. So, but I can always tell you the best 2 years I had were over in Hawaii. And I met George Downing, and as Jim was saying, and he was a great surfer. And I was on the beach the first day. I just walked down there, and the waves were good. And Joey Cabell and Alan Gomes were out over at Queens there. And there was Woody Brown with the Monakai, who was raking the leaves on the beach. I didn't know anybody at the time. And he looked at me and he said, "Do you surf?" And I went, "Yeah." He said, "Do you have a board?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, I got a board I can loan you," just out of the blue. Never talked to me before in my life. So I had a great time, and everything went on from there. Got a board locker, had every night off, and George and I shared an apartment down there about a block from the beach. It was pretty bad. It was for $27 a month back then. We just couldn't get too much. We did have a couple of beds in it, and there was a bathroom, but no hot water. There was no closet. But it was only a block from the beach, so it all worked out. And I was 2 years on that boat with George, and they're all local kids from all the islands. We went to every island, and as soon as we were back, George got a new Ford, what was it, a large car. We could sleep in the back. And we'd just go drive out to Makaha, and we'd stay there and listen to the waves pound all night. I remember I had blankets all over me, and he was in his trunks, and the mosquitoes just got me like crazy, and he just did it all night. George made a board for me. I brought it back over here, and I made a board over there, and that's when I came back, and I worked, like Tim said, for a year. But I just told him I had to go. And that's when I got in with Belzy. And I think knowing Belzy was one of the highlights of my whole experience shaping boards. He was a character. And I'll tell you, just to give you an example, we had a fairly small shop, a couple shaping rooms and a little showroom. And these people would call and they say such and such, can I come down and get my board this Saturday? And I'd yell at Dale and he'd go, who is it again? And I'd tell him, he said, yeah, tell him it's done. And I said, are you sure, Dale? Yeah, tell him it's done. So, okay, yeah, I said, come down Saturday. And I went back and I said, Dale, I says, we got 12 boards, we got like 15 people, 18 people coming, what are we going to do about that? And he goes, oh, so what? He says, I'll just go out and measure them. And he said, I'll ask them what size they want, I'll measure them, and if they don't have the right size, they'll come back next week. And Dale always had the right part of the tape. He would hand them the end of the tape. And then he would say, what size board was it you wanted? And they'd say, oh, 9.6. And we'd pull it out. Yeah, this is yours. And we made a pig board, and it was because he got lazy. And he was shaping a board, he got the nose done, and he got to the tail and balsa wood, it wasn't easy to do. So he got down around the tail and he goes, hey, Hap, what do you think about this? Why don't we just leave it back here and kind of look down like a pig from looking down up here in the sky towards it. He said, I bet you this would work. So I said, well, I don't know. We just got tired because we had a handsaw sawing them out. And so anyway, he made a slide there. We got Mickey Munoz down there and had him with the Hermosphere riding the thing, had kind of a narrow nose and a wide tail. We sat there on the beach and we got a real nice wave, got on the nose and turned it like crazy and we looked at each other and said, wow, this is going to be less work. And Dale was a real character. I really missed him. But from then on, everything, when I started the shop up on the highway, always really had some good people working for me, and we had, it was really a good time. And all the characters from La Jolla, from Windansea and down there, and it was a great time. And everything just kind of went downhill a little bit with the short boards, and then Donald called me back and he says, you got to get down here in Oceanside, we're having a contest. And I said, what, short boards? And he goes, no, long boards. He said, I've been making them all the way through. So we went down there and he gave me a planer, there was no parts, gave me a bucket full of parts, and he goes, here you go. So I went back to the Molson and started again. So that's kind of the story of how everything went. There's a lot left out, but everybody here has really been a big help. So I just thank you all.
Hap Jacobs, ladies and gentlemen, Hap Jacobs. Robert August, if you're here, thank you, Robert. Matt Young.
So I wanted to tell you about the first time I ever saw a Hap Jacobs t-shirt. And it was 1963 when Mike Doyle, Joey Cabell, LJ Richards came to Australia for the first World Surfing Championships. And one of the things that Doyle actually gave me a lot of things, but one of the things that really turned me on was seeing it was a Jacobs t-shirt. And also, as well as a Jacobs t-shirt, he was surfing a big, it was like a purple coloured board with a red competition stripes across it, with a maroon stripe across it, with a Jacobs sticker in the middle. And everybody around Australia started to make boards with either solid colours with competition stripes around them. So that was the turn on for all of us. And I think that really having these boards, when Belzy was there at that stage, probably too, they set the trend for us, and that was the turn on. And thanks, Hap. As Herbie Fletcher says, the Stokes there.